Hey everybody, how are you all doing? I hope you're doing well. My name's Matthew and I post videos every Monday and Friday, so if you love the tingles, then hit that subscribe button because you are in the right place. Now, today's video, we are going to be looking at another suggestion. And this suggestion, as you can see by the title, is the case of Annie Lee. I've not read this case before, which we have all of them actually. I think there's only one case I was familiar with. But I like it that you get natural responses and my reactions to these cases. But anyway, let's get into this video. Oh, by the way, if you have any suggestions for any true crime cases that you would like to hear, then don't hesitate to hit that. Don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button. Don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button, but also don't hesitate to pop that suggestion in the comments down below. Anyway, everyone who met Annie Lee agreed that she was outstanding. She was beautiful, with a smile that would light up the room, and an academic superstar while in high school and college. She was valedictorian of her graduating class at Union Mine High School in El Dorado, California, where she was voted most likely to be the next Einstein. After receiving a $160,000 scholarship, she attended and graduated from the University of Rochester in New York with a major in cell developmental biology, and a minor in medical anthropology. Annie was accepted into the prestigious Yale graduate program at 24. At 24, she found herself working toward a doctorate in pharmacology at a prestigious Ivy League college in New Haven, Connecticut. She was also in love and engaged to be married. During her time in Yale School of Medicine's Department of Pharmacology, Annie was liked by everyone and had no enemies, or so they thought. On September 8th, 2009, 5 days before her wedding, Annie left her apartment and took Yale Transit to her office at Sterling Hall of Medicine on the Yale campus. At approximately 10 a.m., Annie walked into another campus building on Armistead Street, where her research lab was located. Annie entered the building just after 10 a.m, as documented on the school's security cameras. She was never seen leaving the building. Annie was known to be responsible and punctual. By 9 p.m. that evening, when she still had not returned home, one of her 5 roommates called the New Haven Police Department and reported her missing. When police went to Yale to investigate, they found that the building and general area were monitored by 70 security cameras. In addition, the building and rooms could only be accessed by those with a Yale identification card. While reviewing the footage, they could see the petite young woman enter the lab but never leave. They secured the building to investigate further, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Connecticut State Police joined in the search. Annie was described as smart, funny, high energy and compassionate, who would have brutally murdered her. For days the family waited for any word, hoping that Annie would be found alive. They'd been looking forward to sharing the happiest moment of her life at her upcoming lavish Long Island wedding. No one could have fathomed that she would be found dead on campus in her own research lab. 5 days after her disappearance on September 13th, 2009, the day Annie was supposed to be marrying the love of her life, Jonathan Wodowski, police found her body. It is my tragic duty to report that a body of a female was found in the basement of the Armistead building late this afternoon. The identity of the woman has not yet been established, wrote Yale President Richard Levin in a letter to university staff and students. Law enforcement officials remain on the scene. This is an active investigation and we hope it is resolved quickly. On the date Annie was found, fellow student Raymond Clark III, 26, reported seeing her leave the Yale Annual Research Centre carrying 2 bags of mouse food and a notebook. Police immediately closed in on Clark, who was the only one working in the lab where Annie was that day. The 13-page arrest affidavit filled in some of the gaps of what investigators were doing before the discovery of Annie's body. The affidavit revealed that security cameras showed the movements of both Annie and Clark, that scratches were found on Clark's body, and Clark attempted to clean the crime scene and erase his DNA. Though the document did not offer a motive, sources familiar with the investigation told the Hartford Courant, I think that's how you say it, that the strangulation occurred due to a work dispute between Clark and Annie. From 10:40 a.m. that morning until 3:45, Clark went in and out of the lab where Annie had been working and another room down the hall 55 times, according to the affidavit. A small part of the affidavit was redacted and appeared to be about the discovery of Annie's body. When Clark left the facility that day, police noticed that he was wearing different clothing than what he had been wearing when he arrived. While police had been searching for Annie, a fellow student, Rachel Roth, told Yale University police officer Sabrina Wood about a box of wipes that had blood spots on it. The wipes were located on a steel push chart in the room Annie had last logged into with her security card. The blood on the wipe box was not the only thing that Wood noticed. According to the affidavit, Wood saw Clark go over to the car and move the box so the blood spatter was facing the other way. And out of sight, Wood immediately began making small talk with Clark so that she would not appear suspicious. While investigators searched for Annie, Clark continued scrubbing the drain in the room with steel wool and cleaning products. Another Yale University Sergeant J. Jones also saw Clark scrubbing the floor under the sink near the drain. Jones thought it was strange as the floor was clean. Jones also saw Clark touch the pushcart. By September 10th, the FBI had collected a list of evidence to include the box of wipes and an extra-large lab coat with red stains that were found in a recycling box. Surveillance footage showed Clark wearing a similar lab coat earlier on that day. On September 8th, according to the affidavit. Investigators then went to Annie's apartment to gather her personal belongings, including a toothbrush to be used in DNA testing. The results from the test confirmed that the blood found on the box of wipes and the lab coat was Annie's. On September 10th, Clark came forward with information about Annie. He told investigators that he saw Annie leave the building 15 minutes before he did, and before a fire alarm went off. The alarm was set off by an autoclave used to sterilize lab equipment. The interview further convinced investigators to focus on Clark, so they applied for a search and seizure warrants to get mouth swabs, fingerprints, body hair, and fingernail clippings from Clark. They conducted a polygraph test and he failed miserably. On the 12th of September, police discovered evidence above a hallway drop ceiling outside the lab. A rubber glove with bloodstains was found, along with a sock. They also collected a pair of work boots covered in blood that had a label Ray C on them, along with a blue hospital scrub like the shirt Clark was seen wearing in the surveillance tapes. At this point, they had seized a sizable amount of evidence but yet to find the body. However, an alert investigator smelled something in the area in the utility panel in the lab. Investigators brought in cadaver dogs, who quickly found the body of a female wearing surgical gloves, her underwear pulled down around her ankles. She also had a broken jaw and collarbone. My God. Behind the wall, police found a large amount of blood and insulation that was used to conceal the body behind the utility panel. Investigators also found a blood-stained lab coat, a sock that looked like the one found in the drop ceiling, and a green ink pen. On September 15th, police searched Clark's apartment in Middletown and obtained DNA samples, which were found to be a match, including the match of a semen sample left at the crime scene. A stain on the sock contained DNA from both Annie and Clark. Police had built a substantial case. Clark was arrested on September 17, 2009, at a Super 8 motel in Cromwell, Connecticut. He was charged with murder and remanded to the McDougal Walker Correctional Facility in Suffield to await trial. In January 2010, Clark initially pleaded not guilty but later changed his plea in exchange for a shorter prison term. On March 17, 2011, with a room full of reporters along with Annie's fiancé and family, Clark sat in court looking quiet and abandoned. He pleaded guilty to the murder of Annie Lee. He was also found guilty of an attempted sexual assault. Clark had made an agreement with the court to serve 44 years, keeping him in prison until 2053. During the sentences, about 20 members of Annie's family sat with their handkerchiefs out. Annie's mother, Vivian Van Lee, and father, Hong Lee, made emotional statements before the judge's sentence was imposed. According to the New Haven Register, the most powerful moment came when Raymond Clark III spoke tearfully to the courtroom. "I take full responsibility for my actions," Clark said, reading his statement in a muted and unsteady voice. I alone am responsible for the death of Annie Lee and causing tremendous pain to all who loved and cared about Annie. He said, "I have always tried to do the right thing and stay out of trouble," Clark said, "but I failed. I took a life and continued to lie about it, while Annie's friends, family and fiancé sat and waited." Clark went on, I really never wanted to harm anyone or cause emotional pain to anyone. All I wanted was to be a good son, a good brother and a good fiancé, but again I failed. Jennifer, I can't pronounce that surname, was engaged to Clark when he was arrested, and she sat alongside Clark's parents in the courtroom. "I blame only myself, and there are no excuses for what I have done," Clark said. "Annie was and will always be a wonderful person, by far a better person than I will ever be in my life. You've got that right, Clark." Clark continued, seemingly looking for sympathy. "I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry I ruined lives, and I'm sorry for taking Annie's life. Superior Court Judge Roland Fasano said, "The suffering, the anguish of the families is heartbreaking." He said the plea agreement is appropriate, as it was a substantial sentence and prevents Annie's family from going through an emotional, painful trial. For murder, 44 years to serve. For attempted sexual assault in the first degree, 20 years to run concurrently, said Fasano. Clark remains incarcerated at Cheshire Correctional Institution in New Haven, County Connecticut. Annie's family and friends gathered on September 26, 2009 in California, near where Annie grew up. Jonathan held a memorial service earlier in the week at Holy Trinity Catholic Church in El Dorado Hills, California, about 30 miles of East Sacramento. It followed the service held back east. Jonathan sat with his head bowed while Annie's family and friends filled the church to say goodbye to a young woman remembered as beaming with life, who had a mission to find cures for diseases. Jonathan acted as head usher for the California service, which was attended by more than 600 people. If we take those special qualities of hers and continue to make them our own, then she will continue to live in us. Annie's mother, Vivian Van Lee, tearfully talked about the lullaby she would sing to her daughter when she was small, then read a poem she had written in Vietnamese that was translated by Annie's brother, Chris Lee. "Farewell, my child, the most wonderful gift that God sent to me," Annie's mother said. She continued to describe her daughter's death as a knife searing through my soul. She turned to Jonathan and said, "John, even though Annie's gone, but I still have you and love you so very much. You are my son." In closing, the worth of Annie's life was not its length, it was its intensity of love. I am so glad that this guy was found so quickly. I mean, he clearly didn't know what he was. I want to say he clearly didn't know what he was doing. He obviously knew what he was doing, but what I don't understand is the motive. How do you go from a disagreement, but then it's not really a disagreement if he then's trying to sexually assault her? I mean, the motive, I don't, well, we don't know, do we? But he got justice, he pleaded guilty, he's in prison for a very long time. Should he ever come out? Probably not. You know, a life for a life. You know. But, yeah. He's in prison where he belongs. So, this was the case of Annie Lee. Thank you again for this suggestion. I hope you found this video to be really relaxing. I hope it gave you tingles, 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 tingles. And I hope you're sleeping so soundly right now. And I hope to see